Hello everyone, nubkeks here. Welcome back to Nub Raids. We have a lot of news today. I'm going to be covering the 10x champions that are coming this weekend as part of the final Summon Rush for Great Floriaka. That is coming alongside a guaranteed champion as well. But first of all, we have to talk about, you might have seen this new champion arrive in game and also the tournament to win this new champion, and that is Tatsu. We have to talk about, number one, is this champion any good? And then number two, which is a slightly separate question, is it worth going for this tournament to try to win it? Because, I mean, they could be amazing, but the tournament be too difficult, or they could be bad, but the tournament super easy. So we'll have to break that down. Let's talk about Tatsu first of all. How good do I think this champion actually is? I mean, first of all, visually, love it. Looks super cool. I actually haven't seen the last two episodes of Call the Arbiter, one that came out when I was on holiday. I need to go actually back and watch it and watch the one that came out today. I think visually she looks kind of like a combo, right, of Chinoru, who I really like, one of the original Shadowkin, and like Kyoku. I think Chinoru and Kyoku had a baby, and that baby is Tatsu. But she looks badass. I like it a lot. Looking at her base stats, good base stats across the board. Now she's fairly squishy, but 1553 base attack, pretty good. Alongside 63% crit damage. She's an attack-based champion, so she should hopefully hit pretty hard. Don't know what her multipliers are though. One thing with her kit, accuracy is going to be important, but she does only have 10 base accuracy. 100 base speed is pretty solid though. That's pretty good. Let's take a look here. So Transference Slash. Attack one enemy 2 times. Each hit transfers a random debuff from this champion to the target and fills the turn meter of this champion by 5% for each transferred debuff. 20% damage from books. That's sort of, and again, 20% damage from books, 20% damage. That's a pretty good chunk of damage from books for sure. The bigger sides of that we tend to see something like Trunda maybe with a 30%. I think Magnar is 30% as well. 20% is fairly standard. Wraith Explosion, 4-turn booking to 3-turn cooldown, attacks all enemies, 75 booking to 100% chance of putting a 50% decreased resistance debuff on all enemies for 2 turns. So hey, if you skipped Great Floriaka, like I'm sure you probably did, this could be another chance to get or potentially skip a decreased resist champion. It also does put a sleep debuff on all enemies for 1 turn. I guess it's the same. I guess it's also a 75% that books to 100% chance for the sleep. It's a little unclear, but I presume so. I presume so. Also fills the champion's turn meter by 10% for each debuff placed. So let's say you're up against 4 enemies in arena. You could potentially place 2 debuffs. So 20% per enemy. You could get 80% turn meter against a Doom Tower wave. You're placing 2 debuffs on 5 enemies, you could get 100% turn meter, 5 times 20%. That's not bad. Cool. Okay. Purgation Blade, 5-turn booking to a 4-turn cooldown, bit of a longer cooldown. Attack 1 enemy 2 times. Before attacking, removes all debuffs from this champion and steals all buffs from the target enemy. Puts 50% increased attack and 30% increased crit damage on this champion for 2 turns if this attack kills an enemy, and these buffs cannot be removed. And then Heightened Sense is the passive, immune to sleep debuffs, and increases their accuracy by 10 and crit damage by 3% for each buff on the enemy team. So what do we think of this champion putting all this stuff together? Initial vibe for me, initially, is intriguing, but not overpowered. Definitely my initial vibe. Going straight to the passive, I think this is the place to go really for any, especially for nukers, almost any champion, but really for nukers. I feel like at the moment, the best nukers in the game have defensive passives. I'm thinking of champions like Rotus, Harima, Taurus, those sorts of champions. Kandrafon even a little bit. Defensive passives tend to be pretty good. This one is an offensive one. I actually think this is quite good though. Obviously being immune to sleep, that is still handy. You got Sifi and Kaimar in there, and they could always add more sleep champions in the future. That's not a bad thing to have. Increasing their accuracy by 10 and crit damage by 3%, I actually think that's quite good. It's sort of better than it seems initially. If we think about, well, let's say Sifi. Let's say you're up against a Sifi or a Duchess, right? They each put out 3 buffs on their team. And again, in Arena, there's 4 of them on the enemy team. So that's going to be 12 buffs total. I'm assuming that's how it works. I mean, maybe she puts out increased speed on 4 people. It still only counts as 1 buff. I'm assuming that each instance of the buff counts as a buff, as it were. So I'm assuming 12, right? 3 buffs, 4 enemies, 3 buffs each, 12 buffs total. That's 120 accuracy. And that's 12 by 3 is 36% crit damage. It's a pretty good chunk of crit damage, and it's a very big chunk of accuracy. That's actually quite nice, right? That's equal to 3 full sets of perception, right? Each double 2 pieces of perception gives you bonus 40 accuracy. With just 3 buffs on each enemy, 4 enemies, he's giving you 120 accuracy. It's a pretty big deal. So that to me is actually quite interesting, because this does mean that you can build this champion for damage and be quite lacking on accuracy, yet still have enough accuracy to at least be somewhat effective with their debuffs. So that is kind of cool. I think this A3 is actually, it's not bad, right? I think definitely one of the issues with this champion, obviously, is putting stealing buffs, right? Transferring debuffs, placing debuffs as well. All of this stuff is very bad for Polymorph, but Polymorph is getting a bit of a nerf very soon. It's going to make it, I think, certainly weaker on the tanky revivers in particular, which is certainly going to help because they're so popular. You're almost always running into tanky revivers in Arena these days. So that's going to make her a bit more viable there. This move is pretty good. Like, if you take Polymorph out of the equation, full cleansing this champion, and then stealing all buffs from the enemy, that's actually pretty okay. And it's a double hitter too, which is nice as well. That seems actually pretty good. If this hits hard, it's a pretty useful move. Interesting one, Stone Skin would be the ideal thing to steal, but of course then it's still quite a big gamble, isn't it? Because you only have that 50-50 to successfully steal Stone Skin. If you don't steal Stone Skin, you just wasted your big attack here. Presumably it's a big attack and you're not going to kill them, not going to get these buffs. But I still think that's an interesting option. That's cool. The AoE with decreased resistance and sleep, I feel like the decreased resistance is unlikely to be very useful. You know, for decreased resistance to matter, you're going up against an enemy with very, very high resistance. In which case you're going to need tons of accuracy. I don't see that as being a particularly good way to build this champion, though maybe you could. I mean, her base speed and accuracy are only okay. The base speed's okay. Base accuracy is a bit weak. You could build her like to go first, decrease resist and sleep. But then, like, what else is she doing? It seems like kind of a waste. So I'm not super sold on the decreased resistance. So I'm kind of ignoring that part of it. It's just sort of a bonus, but not that important. But I do think that an AoE attack with sleep and giving her potentially a bunch of turn meter is actually quite nice. This seems like quite a decent AoE. We'll see how hard it hits. And then the A1 seems okay as well. Even if you don't have enough accuracy, I think it will still remove the debuffs, but it will just resist placing them on the enemy. But it will remove them off of her, which is kind of nice and could work well with revenge accessories and ally attack, counterattack stuff. So yeah, I mean, my sort of opinion of this champion, I'm kind of intrigued. I want to see how hard she hits. I think she could be a fun one to play with, but I mean, certainly, is she as good as Jorgid? Is she as good as Harima? No, obviously not. She's obviously a big step down from that, but I think she could be intriguing. I think she could be viable. Here's the question though, is she worth going for? And this is where we come to kind of the second part of the question. So here's something to consider too. I'm pretty sure that this Jizzo's power pack is the best energy pack that they've ever done. So bear that in mind. We're going into a champion training tournament to win this champion. Anyone who wants to spend money, like I could come in and spend $40 to get this champion because I'm a content creator. I could do that and get a whole bunch of multi-battles and energy. And if you're up against me, you're going to have a really tough time. So that's something to consider. There's a really good energy pack on right now. This champion looks kind of cool. They're brand new. People might go for it. This has just gone live. I took a quick look at this and the guy's at about 2,000 points already. He's almost up to 4,000 points. I don't even think this is the same guy. But like my group is already going pretty hard for this champion. And that's sort of the part two of this question. I think the champion looks okay. I wouldn't mind getting them, but I wouldn't be crazy about getting them. But I think that it could be quite an intensive tournament. It's 5 days long, effectively. It's a very long grind. I think there's sort of no harm going for it. 6-star Chaos Ore and a legendary skill tome are pretty good to get. So there's no massive harm in doing this efficiently and building up your food, like getting your 1-star, your 2-star champions, leveled up and make them into 3-star or even 4-star food at level 1, getting it ready for the next champion training thing. That's a fine way to do it to get these rewards. Pretty okay. And you can sort of see how your tournament group is looking. But this could be very difficult. Like people will go for it just because it's new. So that definitely puts me off recommending this one. I think Taragi the Frog is actually up for grabs for lower level players, and if you're able to win that, that could actually be really worthwhile. And champion training when you're lower level is like so good for your account, because there's so many champions you need to level up. When you're more late game, like I don't know if I have any champions I really need to level up right now. Like I tend to just level them up in Minotaur now and get their masteries done at the same time, you know. So yeah, I've got mixed feelings about that, but let me know, what do you think? I think people are going to not be too impressed with Tatsu. I think they're actually kind of interesting, but yeah, I'd expect reasonably low interest. Maybe she's super cool in the cartoon, and like that's really going to hype people up to get her, but I don't think people are going to be too excited. It's my thought. Right then, at the same time, we are also going to be having a 10x with a guaranteed champion this weekend. Let's talk about the guaranteed champion first, and that is Godseeker Aniri. She's going to be available on your 25th Void Shard. The really interesting thing about this for me is they have done, this is the first time actually, that they've repeated a guaranteed event. They've done a guaranteed event for Godseeker Aniri before. That's a pretty big deal. Let me actually see if I can find how much it was. Let me see. Let's look. Google raid guaranteed champions. Here we go. Let's see how much it was. So, let's see. Godseeker. She was 25 void shards as well. Okay, there you go. So that's nice to see. No inflation. It's the exact same thing. But yeah, they did it. It's been a year and a half since they did it. But like I said, first time they're repeating it. So that definitely opens up the question. Could they repeat stuff again in the future? Oh, I didn't show you guys. Hang on, here we go. This is what I was trying to show you. 15th of January. They could repeat stuff again. That's an interesting option. So I think that could be exciting. Like, we could see Inquisitor Shamail come back, Madame Ceres. You could see Cold Heart guaranteed come back at some point, a Geomancer guaranteed, you know? Like, there are some old guarantees that they did way back, and I'm definitely looking at them and saying, like, man, there's still such a huge demand for Shamail, for Geomancer, for Cold Heart, for new players. Like, having a guaranteed Cold Heart is such a good deal. I would love to see this be like a yearly event, something like that, you know, have this be a more regular thing. I think that would be cool, or different sort of events to get these crucial champions onto accounts earlier. I think it's just better for the game, in my opinion. I don't know. Raid clearly mostly disagrees, but it's interesting to see this one come back. Godseeker is fantastic. 25 void shards. It may be worth it. It maybe not. It does open up Sand Devil farming, right? You can do Sand Devil, high stages of Godseeker. You could do it like Godseeker Walking Tomb Drang. Maybe Artak works. I use Godseeker Ninja, and honestly, I'm not 100% sure I'm not 100% sure what other champions you can use, but the long story short is Godseeker comes in, and because with her passive, revives on death when someone dies, she'll revive herself when the whole team dies because she's in the lead position, and then she can use her revive to bring back your damage dealer with their cooldowns reset. So for example, Ninja or Walking Tomb Drang, they can come in and burn the Sand Devil, and that burn will slowly and eventually kill him. So it's this sort of combo. It's very gear intensive though, but it's cool. So if you don't have a Godseeker and you're sort of at that late game point where you have that level of gear, it's certainly an interesting option to get into farming up some of that Sand Devil stuff. So I would consider it for that. And just generally speaking, Godseeker is phenomenally good. She's very good. I use her in Iron Twins. She's great for Hydra, good even for Demon Lord Clan Boss, great for Doom Tower. She's great in a lot of places. She might be okay in Live Arena. I'm actually not 100% sure. I clicked the wrong thing. Of course I did. Where are we going? We're over here. So I'm looking for this. Go for Godseeker Aniri. Like what sort of... Just curious what the win rates in Arena are. Kind of low, but she's just an epic, so you sort of expect that. Yeah, and people probably don't have her built. So nothing really impressive in Live Arena. Though I think she has some potential, but maybe not too much. But yeah, look, Godseeker, 25 Void Shards. It's something to consider, though you may not have any Void Shards saved up. That's sort of the problem. But if you have them saved up and she's new to your account, she is a great champion. Does need a lot of books as well. It's certainly something that is worth considering. Yeah, that's kind of what I'd say about it. I'd say it's sort of worth considering. She is very, very good. The 10x champions that are going to be on at the same time, and bearing in mind this is going to overlap with the final summon rush for Great Floriaka. So if you're still going for that, I mean, I will say this. having 2 summon rushes as part of this fusion was really terrible. At least they put good guaranteed void champions in there. I think last weekend was Demitha. This one is Godseeker. I think Demitha is more important because she opens up further levels of Demon Lord Clan Boss, and you'll sort of earn your shards back quite quickly from that. Godseeker not as important, but still nice. But yeah, at least they put in some good guarantees for it, though. Yeah, still not a fan of the double summon rush. So the champions that are available from this one, we are going to have from the Ancient Shards. Sepulchre Sentinel is going to be one of the first ones. Good champion, does combo well enough with Godseeker as well, because you can extend this, so that's kind of nice. Sepulchre is a solid champ with decreased attack, block debuffs at increased defense, and then chance to block damage completely. Good solid champion, defense in all battles, good against Magma Dragon, good against Demon Lord Clan Boss. A solid champion overall. A good one to have. And then the only other epic from the Ancient and Sacreds is, again, another very solid epic, which is Achak, the Wenderin. Very nice. He's got basically AoE freeze. It mostly does an AoE freeze. It can do a burn, but this almost never happens. It's almost always the freeze. So this is on a 3-turn cooldown. It's quite rare actually to get an AoE freeze on a 3-turn. It's not a 100% chance, but it's pretty good. He also brings you some block debuffs and strengthen and an A1. His passive is quite nice for Doom Tower Waves. I think that's where he sort of thrives most, is Doom Tower Waves and the Spider Dungeon. Where against Spider Dungeon, he does give you a lot of turn meter when he freezes the Spiderlings. In Doom Tower Waves, he's going to give you turn meter. If you got a burner, he's going to heal your team as well and give you some protection. So Achak is a really good epic. So they're kind of nice. Again, in 10x events, epics are the ones you're more likely to get, but I'm often not that compelled to pull in 10x or even guaranteed events for these epics, to be honest, because you sort of build them up quite well from 2x events. 2x events are so good for epics. It's really the legendaries that I care about more, but again, your chance for the legendaries is so slim. Let's look at the legendaries from Ancients and Sacred. So first up, we've got Pythion, who I feel like has been in multiple 10x events recently, on top of being a recent fusion. Pythion is excellent, of course. AoE revive, the AoE heal with a cleanse and block debuffs, good healing on his A1, and then a great damage reduction passive and brilliant base stats. Pythion is a fantastic champion, so he's one that basically everyone sort of wants to have. Brogni is the next one in there, another fantastic champion. Again, much like Pythion, he's an okay arena champion. Pythion's very good in arena, extremely good in arena. Brogni's okay in arena. Brogni is particularly good for a lot of PvE content though, so Doom Tower bosses. He definitely stands out as being fantastic. Does see some use maybe in some Spider hard teams even now as well. Really good shielding with increased attack and block debuffs, reflecting damage and healing with the shield. Does a lot of damage because he can proc Giant Slayer multiple times off these damage reflection on your whole team. So he's a very, very good champion. And then finally, Duchess Lilitu, who is, I think, still the best champion you can pull from Ancients or Sacred Shards. So that's a pretty good one to get. Duchess, the best one. So I think, honestly, a couple of decent epics in there and some very, very good legendaries. So yeah, look, at the same time, like for me, I'd love the Duchess. I wouldn't hugely be that excited about another Underpriest Brogni or another Pythion. So this is the thing, and it's only a 10x event from Ancient and Sacreds. Is it worth investing? I don't know. It's been a while since we've had a Sacred guaranteed. I've actually built up to 21 because I've skipped this fusion. So I'm really building up my shards very well. I wouldn't be shocked to see guaranteed soonish for both Voids and Sacreds. Like I definitely have the vibe they're coming soonish because I've built up tons, right? I've built up absolutely tons, saving them up now. So makes a difference. Some of them are purchased, and most of these actually are saved up. So yeah, we're getting to the point where I'd expect it to be fairly due. So that's something to consider. For the Voids in this 10x event, 2 very solid ones again. So the first one, a champion that I never really use, but I know people like, is Scathix. He comes in as he does have a bit of a buff steal, but he's got a cleanse with a shield. Kind of nice. He could be okay for some Iron Twins, because I think he can do some decreased speed A1 as well. Not a bad champ. I'm not too mad on him, but I know people do like him. And then a champion that's excellent is Madame Ceres. One of the better epics for Arena, and soon to be much better as well, with Polymorph getting a bit of a change. But yeah, decrease attack and decrease defense on all enemies for 2 turns. Great move. She even has an AoE buff steal, chance to buff steal, which is nice as well. But yeah, it's just very good, that decreased defense, decreased attack with the buff strip. Brilliant champion for a lot of earlier game players for Arena. So like that's kind of nice, right? If you're early game and you're like, ooh, I've saved up a few void shards, and you're going, ooh, I can pull in a 10x from Madame Ceres, and even maybe a Scathix could be okay for me, could be helpful, and I get that guaranteed Godseeker as well. It's a pretty nifty deal, actually. That the fact that they've stacked them up. Like when they did Godseeker before, I think she was just on her own. Now it's part of a 10x event as well, which is kind of nice. And then finally, Cardial is the champion boosted in the 10x for the Void Legendaries. He's an excellent, excellent Void Legendary. Really solid for Arena, Live Arena, Tag Arena, even okay for some Classic Arena stuff. Brilliant champion actually for Hydra. And yeah, brilliant champ for a lot of Doom Tower bosses. The best ally attack champ in the game. Fire Knight Hard as well. Don't forget about that. He's very good for Fire Knight Hard. One of the few meta champions there. Kind of him and Valkyrie are the two that stand out as hard to get, that open that up. He has a full cleanse with block debuffs, revive on death, speed aura, does lots of healing with his A1. Great champ as well. So I'd say overall, being a 10x event with a guaranteed Godseeker, this is honestly a very good event overall. Am I going to go for it? No, I'm not, because I don't care about a Godseeker. I'm not going to do this summon rush. So personally, I'm not going to go for it. I'm nowhere near Void Mercy. I'm just going to save up and see what comes with guaranteeds, because they could come soon. You never know. So I'm going to be saving up for now. It's sort of the thing with raids. 10x events can be a good place to spend your shards when you're close to Mercy, but there's no shortage of decent 10x events that are coming out, so there's no harm in waiting. It's sort of my vibe. And yeah, I am going to see if I can find out info on Tatsu. I might I'm tempted to go for it just for fun, but I don't have any legendary books, so I don't know. Let me know what you think of Tatsu. Definitely not an essential. It'll be more of a content creator novelty than an essential, is my vibe on that. Yeah, all right. I think that's all the news. That's all we've got. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and hopefully help you make some decisions too. I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.